I gotta get my special notes book. Oops.
Get your notebook together.
Special, let's put it in.
Hey, here. So, this would be episode 1 of Untitled. We're still figuring this all out here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Nadia, affectionately known as Illuminatia by many. So the premise of this whole thing, this podcast, is kind of a study of the origins of things and stuff. Maybe that could be a working title. The origins of things and stuff.
And stuff. I like that. Let me put that up in the top right corner.
Yes, yes. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, you sound great. I don't think, actually, hold on one second. You do sound great, but I don't think you're coming through into the recording once. Fudge crackers, let's see here. I'm not even coming through the recording over here. Interesting. Okay, let's, where are you? Where's the gosh darn unhide all? Test, test, test. Test, test. Why? Where is this coming through? Why is this not coming through my OBS here? 1 second. This is ridiculous. This is craziness.
Oh, no. It's okay.
Yeah. Ba, ba, ba. The voice output 1. There we go. Okay, can you say something?
I can.
Sweet. All right, it works. Now it's working.
Oh, good.
We don't have to re-record any of that. I could just splice this audio on top. Because I record the audio and the video and all over the place. It's craziness. It's insanity. But
oh, man. Dang,
right.
Dude.
So this is the study of the origins of things and stuff?
The origins of things and stuff, yes. It's kind of a fun thing. I've recently discovered a lot of origins of things and stuff and have had my mind blown multiple times. And because of this, I thought it'd be kind of cool to share this with people. There's so much out there that we don't know and how things came to be. And it's been a development from ancient times. And the progression of time and building upon knowledge, you'd be surprised how complex it is and how many people died for a lot of the knowledge that we take for granted. And, you know, I come to realize that the ancient peoples were not as humble as people accuse them of being. There's a lot of people that say, oh, they were dumb. You know, they thought the earth was flat and we were, you know, geocentric and, you know, all these types of things. But even during popular theories, there were still people out there that believed other things. There was conflicting theories. So it's not completely true that one thing was believed. So that being said, you know, they didn't have Google. They didn't have, you know, not many people read books or knew how to read, knew how to write. There was very few people who could. So thinking of that, like there was not a lot of literature they could refer to. It just kind of came from observation, you know, looking at the stars or looking at the materials around them or studying people or, you know, even to the molecular level, you know, even Plato pondered about how small things can get or how, you know, vast the universe is. You know, it's actually pretty incredible. So I guess I kind of want to bring an appreciation of origins to all these things that we don't really, for the most part, I'm sure a lot of people appreciate it, but once you learn more about it, it's kind of mind-blowing. I also kind of want to, it's unfortunate that a lot of these subjects were taught in such a boring way. You know, public schools especially, and I have no experience, obviously, of other countries' schools, public school systems. But in my experience, a lot of these subjects were trivial. They were boring. They were, they're taught in such a way where it was time consuming and tasking. It wasn't fun. It wasn't made interesting.
Did you ever
became kind of a chore.
Did you ever have a good teacher at school?
Yeah, I did. Actually, there was one guy named Mr. Freeman, and he was a history teacher. And that guy he was kind of the person that pushed me towards more of the doubting mindset. He would take popular ideals and just like shove a middle finger at them.
Ooh.
He was great. Especially since, I grew up in California, the Bay Area specifically, where, they're notorious for being very, very liberal. And I'm not saying that it's good or bad, but they do tend to steer towards one mindset. And he would take it the opposite way. And even whether or not he believed it, he would challenge them and say, well, what if? We had no idea where he stood politically. He might have been apolitical for all I know. But he was the guy that taught me to explore backgrounds of things. So he taught me how to debate. He said, debate things that you don't agree with. Look for ways to make your argument stronger, and then realize that these are the same arguments that people on the other side are making, and the logic that's behind it, know thy enemy and blah, blah, blah. Not that they're enemies, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, thank you, Mr. Freeman. Thank you, Freeman.
Yeah, Mr. Freeman, man. He was free as in his name, so who knows if that had an influence on his teaching philosophy. Akalani's High School. Great guy. Haven't stayed in touch with him. I really appreciated his outlook on life, though. He was great. So maybe if I put it out in the universe, he'll feel it and go, oh, thanks. Yeah.
I had a physics teacher that was like my favorite teacher, and I was trying to recently hunt him down, and I found him on Facebook. He's it's Dr. Lloyd's physics class, and he pretty much opened my mind to a lot of things in the world. It only takes like one good teacher to get that spark started in a lot of people.
Absolutely, yeah. And physics, that's another subject that I really wish that was taught well, because studying physics on my own, I realized how fucking cool it is. And people being able to apply mathematics to natural phenomenon, how things move, it's actually incredible. But the way it was taught to me was, again, just a taxing, chore. And it made me cry. And, they didn't convey how amazing it was. It was just like, here's some math, bleh, Physics it's like trying to teach a baby how to run when they don't even know how to crawl yet. Like, they didn't give the proper foundations. You know what I'm saying?
It involves a lot of shoving and the rolling of the baby. Don't do that.
Oh,
don't do that.
Were you shoved and rolled as a baby?
Maybe a lot.
That explains some things, I guess.
Like also physics. It was called the natural sciences, or is physics still called natural sciences? It's like the nature science of nature is physics, or I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm not an expert. Maybe we can do an episode on that.
Oh, yeah. But today's episode is about chemistry?
Yeah, well, the alchemical roots of chemistry. So it's kind of, I will be focusing a lot on more of the physical elements of alchemy, but it's a pretty fascinating subject because alchemists did not believe that physical objects and human beings and spiritual aspects of a human were separate. They were all one thing. So it was really difficult to stick to how alchemy became chemistry. And I kind of went down this rabbit hole of, going to the roots of like there's certain gods, that, it was crazy because there were different cultures that contributed to the study of alchemy. So it could be traced back to ancient Egypt. And they say that the word chem was used to refer to the fertility of the soil, and the properties within the soil that resulted in good crops.
Ooh.
However, there's another, I was talking to somebody who has studied this for about 30 years, and I picked his brain about all this stuff, and he had trouble keeping it to a certain level as well. But he says alchemy comes from the Arabic al, which means the, and then kemia, meaning hidden. So it's basically a study of the hidden. So the word chemistry in itself is basically a study of the hidden. So that's its loose translation. That's where that comes from. So, and I mean, if you think about it, that is a definitely, because, the naked eye, you can't, people didn't know we're carbon-based life forms, and all they knew, the ancient peoples knew, was the sun and, other celestial bodies had a big influence on their survival. So, most people started off as sun worshippers. And the, celestial bodies, like, they saw the sun as being the primary source of all things. And not to go on a tangent, but, even today's, even
Uh-oh. You're breaking up a little bit. We're getting Skype.
Today's religion is very central.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Oh, no.
It's fine.
Oh, fine. Fabulous. The sun was, yeah. I mean, throughout cultures, there are I'll look at another book here. I have a lot of research.
Get all these books over here. I got
there
one
are
book somewhere.
Many cultures that believed in a chariot, the sun being drawn by a chariot. And that was a common theme, even though these cultures were not, in direct contact with one another. Helios was the Greek. There was one in Hindu culture, which could be argued to be the most ancient religion that is currently practiced. It set the foundation for Buddhism.
That like heliocentric?
Sorry?
Heliocentric?
Exactly.
Helios pizza? That's Helios, I'm sorry. No.
Delicious. Oh, yeah. There was a Hindu god, Surya, and that was a male. So Helios and Surya were males, but the Norse and Germanic version, Desona, is a feminine word for sun, whereas, a lot of the El Sol for Spanish is masculine. And it would change. It would flip-flop from culture to culture for good reason. But so the Norse was, let's see, what happened?
What happened?
Whereas basically it was soul, which is interesting because that's Spanish for soul, but it had Norse origins. So, and then subsequently, Mani was the male, the moon, and Loki was the god of chaos and was male mostly.
The trickster god.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of going on a tangent here about the sun. So that was kind of the central theme for most cultures. And for alchemists, the sun it's the most powerful thing in our solar system. And it creates every known element. So the basics, hydrogen and helium, they were the two things that made everything. It's considered the perfect thing. And the sun is also associated with gold. And alchemists, their basic goal was how to turn base metals into gold. So specifically, it was well, they studied a lot about mercury as well, and they believed gold was actually made out of sulfur and mercury. They didn't know it was its own element. And the thing is about gold, now if you remember what I said earlier about how human beings were not separate spiritually from inanimate objects, and, they believed gold was the perfect element. You throw it in the ocean, it will stay, it'll be fine. All other base metals will eventually, tarnish,
Gold doesn't
even
rust?
iron. Nope. You throw it in and it's good to go forever. So it's considered a perfect metal for that reason. It's malleable. There's a lot of different things you can use with it. It conducts electricity. And even to this day, it's kept its value since ancient times. Like, we've always known gold was a valuable thing. And the only thing that was considered more valuable than gold, even Aztecs are known for valuing gold, was meteorites and stones that came from the sky. We've got our, heliocentric religions. And so they believe that these meteorites were gifts from God. And yeah, that was the one thing that it's the only other thing that's now I don't know what other cultures value that over gold, but for the most part, gold was considered the ultimate.
It'd be cool if humans valued life.
Well, actually, on that note, the gold was associated with eternal life.
Oh, well then.
So that's exactly what they associated it with. So if they were able to transmutate, which is the word that you hear a lot when talking about alchemy, if they were able to transmutate base metals into gold, they would find the key to eternal life. So, like I said, they didn't delineate, our life from inanimate objects. Everything was connected because they knew that everything came from the sun. It came from a single source. And you could say that, that was the beginning, like God was, or the original God was the sun. So
Father and the Spirit and the Holy Ghost. No,
yeah, so
didn't almost all religions pretty much kind of take the idea, because we all praise the sun, praise the sun and all that, and then other religions stepped in, well, the sun, well, this guy that we know over here is the sun, so you're gonna bow down to him now or something.
Yeah, so basically, yeah. So it wasn't any different from alchemists, Now the people that originated, well, it's debatable because we don't actually know it's debated amongst people who study alchemy, especially, including this guy that I talked to about it. So the origins, they believe, came from people who studied Islam. And, the word alchemy, like I said earlier, is Arabic.
The hidden. So
that makes sense. The hidden. So they would go around. Let me see here.
They also made math, right, and they made everything, those guys.
Yeah, they had a huge influence on the scientific studies, of the esoteric and everything, and its roots. And it's interesting because, a lot of religions, there are a lot of similarities between all of the different scriptures, and it's interesting how they fight because they really are kind of the same thing.
They're fighting for the same cause, just different sides.
Yeah.
Silly rabbit.
So, yeah, it's kind of whatever. It's fine. It's people. It's a natural human thing, so you can't fault them too much. So yeah, they studied the ultimate cauldron is cauldron. Sorry, it was what the sun was considered. So they dealt with 4 basic elements, and I drew them here, but there were fire, air, water, and earth. So those were the elements before we came up with the periodic table. And it makes sense. Air, you find your basic, gas elements, and fire is, it destroys, but it creates as well. Now I'm just speculating. I'm not actually sure that they said that themselves, but I'm just, And then water, obviously H2O, oxygen and hydrogen molecules, and then earth, which is, where you get all your base metals. And, when you talk about earth, they're talking about all of the solid, elements. And so, and they did have rudimentary knowledge of chemistry, and it gave them the ability to manipulate these elements. And it was during the pursuit of trying to transmutate metals into gold, was, how they discovered how, basic chemical reactions. So that's it gets pretty complicated, but one of the things that they messed around with a lot was sulfur. And sulfur was, it kind of smelled bad, and involved a lot of fire and whatnot. So you'd see this Islamists messing around with, they called it brimstone. And they're in there in a dark room with fire, and they're fucking around with all these chemicals, and probably, and the Catholics considered it to be sinful and borderline witchcraft, and they would persecute people who they would catch doing this kind of thing. So it had to remain hidden, which goes back to that word, chemia. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
You are. You're pronouncing it perfectly. Wait, I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Probably. Who knows?
The symbols for earth, fire, air, and water, they're just up and down triangles. It's kind of like kind of looks like a Reddit, like upvotes and downvotes.
Yeah, like a couple of them have. I don't know. I wrote them down. This is my shitty handwriting.
I put the symbols up on the screen over here. We got air is the up arrow, and there's like a line through it, and fire is up arrow without the line through it, and the earth has the down with the line through it. Yeah, you can't see what I'm seeing right here, but I'm showing it to people. If you're watching the video, it's there.
Oh, perfect. So the 2 metals that they focused on was, mercury, transmutating mercury into gold, and I keep wanting to say it's iron, but it's not iron, and I don't know why I didn't write it down, but
silver, copper, tin.
Yeah, tin. They had. There was a lot of metals, but silver was one of the ones that they messed around with too. But yeah, silver, mercury, copper, lead, iron, tin. I think you're right.
Yeah, and lead.
Tin.
And they made these cool little
so lead,
symbols for each one
that's
too.
Right. So lead and mercury were what they were trying to turn into gold. So that's right. Sorry if I seem a little.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm a little bit all over the place too. This is episode 1 of Origins of Things and Stuff.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get more perfection than this right here. Did you ever see what lead looks like when it's like raw lead? It kind of looks like poop. Yeah,
it looks pretty bad. Then they pulled it out of the earth. They're like, wow, this is special. So, it's kind of interesting that for some reason they found there were certain things in the earth that they found to be more valuable than other things. And then it just kind of carried on. And the reason why it was valuable is because, they observed it I don't want to say behavior because it's not alive, but to them it was. So I guess you could say that it observed its behavior in the elements.
Did they make bullets? Did they make bullets with it?
Eventually, yeah, eventually, I guess. But yeah, that didn't come till later.
That's a little bit before that time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they even traced it back to like ancient Mesopotamia. You know, they were the first ones that you could technically say had, you know, they had a governmental system, they had a civilization, they had, I mean, they're the first ones that came up with politics, and you know, during all this, they also screwed around with elements, and so it's not super well known. They're still going into that, but they know for sure that the Arabs started this whole thing. And I mean, it was Arabic, like Middle Eastern, Persian, Syrian. So this was kind of a common practice amongst those cultures. So as far as transmutation goes, transmutation, like I said, was not just physical, it was spiritual. It was, and they attributed it to biology as well. And this is before they even, I mean, it's hard to say if they knew life was like carbon based, but I mean, it's so complicated and we have so many squishy parts, and, you know, there's different forms of carbon, you know, diamond and then, you know, coal and then us. It's kind of wild. But, you know, they'd watch, for instance, a caterpillar turn into a butterfly. I mean, that's a pretty amazing thing. If you think about it, we kind of think about it, you know, you're taught this when you're a little kid and you're like, oh yeah, you know, totally. But
the first time you're watching it, it's wild.
It's nuts. You know, they basically die. They go into this state of death in the cocoon. You know, they're not moving. They don't eat. They're just kind of like, they look dead. A lot of them turn brown. You know, the chrysalis, the monarch chrysalis is unique in that it's pretty beautiful. But a lot of the times they just turn brown. And then out comes this completely different fucking thing. So,
also like seeds and stuff. You plant a seed. You put a little chocolate chip in the floor, and then you get a big redwood. It's like, what the?
Right. Yeah. So that blew their mind. So who's to say that it can't happen with elements? So one of my insulation thingies just fell down. Okay.
The studio is falling apart. Oh no.
It's falling apart. So, yeah, do you have any other questions for me? I'm having a hard time trying to put this in a more... It's just, there's so much to talk about, and I don't...
To organize thoughts it's a very difficult thing. That's usually why most of the time whenever I do my show, it's just like all over the goddamn place too. Because to go down a certain path, you have to be like a complete crazy expert on something. But to be an expert on something that's so vast and kind of like mushy, it's hard to do. But I do have a, I guess maybe it's a point. It might be a question that these people that we see are like, oh, alchemy, that's dumb, that's stupid. But they were trying to find like a basis, like a nugget that kind of connected all of us. And that's kind of like what Einstein was doing too, like the theory of everything. And we are kind of all made of atoms, and they're just rearranged differently, and they make different stuff. So it's, as much as you might mock these alchemists, they were onto something. And
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it gave us the foundation for chemistry, and in fact, you know, there's a lot of chemists, you know, people who have studied chemistry for a long time often refer to them. And yes, it was refined in a scientific way, but you know, back then, science and spirituality were all in one. There was no delineation. So you know, people wanted to stick more towards like what they believed was technical and less magic. To me, the only difference between things that are technical and things that are magical is we kind of have a vague idea of the technical as to why it works, whereas with magic, we don't know why. That why element isn't there. So And if you think about it, human beings, they say that we're unable to, like, we have our sensories, we have our hearing, sight, taste, smell, what have you, but there's a lot of other different types of wavelengths out there that they believe are undetectable to humans. So a lot of the why of things is simply undetectable for people.
And most of the stuff that we do is it's just made up, like colors. Colors are just, it's kind of like a figment of your imagination that it's like a shared hallucination. It's very strange stuff.
It is a hallucination, actually. It's our entire universe and how we interpret it is all in here. Everything else out there, it's just, there's a lot of stimuli that we just don't interpret, that we don't have time to interpret. Like, our brains can only take in so much, and it's a survival thing. If you were to take in every single fucking thing around you, you'd melt. Shit would melt out of your ears. Like, there was just no way. You had to have a focus. You had to have a side. You have to have a basic principle and understanding, and you have to have, your method. That's why some people are so religious. That's why some people basically replaced religion with science, which is, it's, and me being a scientist, it's like, I wouldn't put so much faith into science because the nature of science is not knowing. So, which is why we do science to it. It's more of a verb and less of a noun, if you ask me.
Nature of science is to debate itself. It's kind of like trying to disprove itself. Like, here's my theory, and even though this is my theory, I want you to disprove it, because that will help us all learn together. Which is kind of like what the alchemists started off doing. They were like, hey, then there must have been definitely like snake oil salesmen. Like there must have been people that were just like gaming the system. Like,
absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people, they would use it monetarily, to monetary benefit rather. So there's a big issue with that. Aleister Crowley kind of went down that path where a lot of people are like, he used it for, fame and, getting riches and women. So, it can be misused, but nonetheless, he did have a deep knowledge of it, and it kind of put a bad taste into a lot of people's mouths. Some people will think it's really cool, like that guy was like a bro, but
maybe
it kind of put, it kind of maybe invalidated a lot of alchemical practices, if that makes any sense. The occult and that kind of thing sort of was looked down upon. But, nowadays, it was, it's no longer really considered a fool's quest, if you will. It's, people are starting to see and understand, the more they study, very, very open-minded people are starting to understand just how important it was for us to understand the elements and the basics of how life and chemistry came to be. So, on that note, there's a thing that I forgot to mention.
Oh.
The ting, is known as the Philosopher's Stone. So the Philosopher's Stone is what the alchemists believe would churn and transmutate, rather, the thing. And it's debatable if it was just a method or an actual physical object, or who knows. But the Philosopher's Stone would be the thing that would transmutate these base metals into gold. So all these alchemists were in search of the Philosopher's Stone. And, it eventually became associated with the devil. The Middle Ages were kind of a rough time for people's discovery. It's not unknown that, Gregorian chanting, right? That was basically, it's very monotone. They didn't want people to create music because they didn't want to be like God. That's how strict they were about not creating things, because anytime you created things, paintings, what have you, this kind of way the Dark Ages creeped up to, was basically imitating God. And that was a huge no-no. So, here comes alchemy. You got these guys, these hermits. Hermetic is the word hermit comes from hermetic, which comes from the god Hermes. I'll talk about that later.
Oh.
Mercury. So, they would... Let me back up. I can just go on a tangent here. Let's back up. So, yeah, they would literally lock themselves in dark rooms, and that was playing God. They didn't like that. So, but nonetheless, the Arabs wanted to go around and share their knowledge with Christians, and so the merging of the two cultures created quite a cool little basis for what they were studying.
The Philosopher's Stone, it's got a symbol for it. It's like a circle and a square and a triangle and a circle, which is supposed to combine all the 4 elements that they had at the time. It's maybe they were onto something. Maybe there is something that could unlock quote reality, or there might be an atomic makeup, or even a quantum thing that they were thinking of that they didn't know how to explain, that might actually exist. Kind of, like Star Trek, the replicator. Wouldn't that sort of be like the Philosopher's Stone right there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I never even thought of that. But yeah, I mean, definitely. And you look at the periodic table here, right? I don't know if you realize this, but gold and Mercury are right next to each other.
So they were close with their theory.
Yeah, they were. I mean, it's pretty damn close. It's 1 electron away from each other. So basically, all they have to do. So Mercury's periodic number is atomic number. Is 80, and then gold is 79.
EU and HG.
Yeah, HG. I don't know if that comes from the word Hermes, because that's what Mercury's called. Like, the fastest moving planet is Mercury, because and it's a quicksilver. I mean, the element itself is associated with fast. It's the only metal that's liquid at room temperature, so it's a pretty unique element. And then gold's right next to that, and then lead's is 82. Atomic number is 82.
Peanut butter. Oh.
Yeah, I should have looked up the because there's Greek root words to there's a reason why it's AU and HG and PB, so I should probably look that up. That would have been a good thing to do. Let's see. So, AU origin.
There was also I was reading that the original alchemists were also like perfume makers. Like, they would take these elements and combine them so they'd smell good and be able to make whoopee with people. I guess I don't know what they were doing. Maybe they just wanted to smell good because they didn't have soap. I don't know if they had. When did soap
I mean, I imagine they stink.
They must have, because I smell right now, and it's the year 2020, so I can only imagine back then.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, they resorted to using animal fat to get stink off of them, so it must have been pretty bad.
Whew.
Interesting thing. So I looked up the element gold. It's element 79, and its symbol is AU. Gold originated from the Latin aurum, or shining dawn. What does that refer to? The sun.
The sun.
What? It all just comes round and round and round.
There's building blocks to life, and we put one down, and then we step on top of it, and then we make another one. It's also what you were talking about earlier, like hermits in rooms and stuff, and then there might be somebody that comes around like Crowley, who kind of makes it bad. It's kind of like influencers on culture, and sometimes the influencer on culture could make people see the idea in a bad way, or they could come around and show you the idea in a good way, or they might just actually just advance us with a theory or a thought, and everybody's like, oh yeah, that's kind of right, and then culture will shift, even though the truth doesn't really care about culture. It's like a mid lane, and then there's people going all over the fucking place, and once you involve people into stuff, nothing really makes sense. But without people, there's no sense to even be made.
Yeah, it's that whole double-edged sword of self-awareness, right? It's there is bad when you're self-aware, but if you're not self-aware, it's nothing. It's just kind of, I guess that's kind of why we separate ourselves from animals. And who knows if there's not another sentient being? I have a hunch that maybe dolphins might be self-aware. But
well, we gave them LSD and made them have sex with this woman in a laboratory for a couple of years. But that's probably a whole nother episode of and it was funded by the government.
That's fun,
because I forget the guy's name. I should remember it, but I have a shit memory. He was funded by the government in case we ever met aliens to try to communicate with them, and he was like, dolphins are kind of like aliens. Maybe we could try to communicate with them. And he had like a woman living with a dolphin. Then they gave them drugs, and they had wild sex, and it was a weird time in American history. I'll just say that. Yes. Awesome too.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows? But yeah, that
maybe the
self-awareness thing is pretty.
Also, culture changes too. Like lobsters used to be seen like prison food. Like, oh, we're gonna give the prisoners lobster, and now we're like, ooh, lobster's a delicacy. And larger ladies used to be seen as being sexy and they could live through the winter. And thin ladies looked like they were starving and famined. But now it's all switched around. You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
I don't know.
But yeah, but anyway. Yeah, I'm thinking about this, like, these guys, they must have known about protons and neutrons and atoms. They must have known about them because, I mean, even Plato talked, I think he talked about, I think the word atom comes from something Plato said. This is something else I should have looked up too. I went too deep of a rabbit hole on this whole fucking thing, and then didn't look up things that probably would have been more important to talk about.
You never know what's going to come up. It's going to have a couple of points, and then and then you can explore it while it's going on. If you want to look it up right now, I could talk about socks or we're not talking.
Okay,
about socks
so
right
quick interjection here. Plato's cosmology. So this is the first thing that came up on Google. Plato's cosmology derived from mathematical discoveries by Empedocles. Empedocles.
So you're about to say M. Night Shyamalan. I was like, whoa.
He was convinced that atoms of matter must derive from these 5 fundamental solids, but at the time the Greek periodic table consisted only of earth, water, air, and fire. Interesting.
Wasn't also like one of the teachers of Plato, like Socrates or the other guy, like one of them, I think one of them wasn't even real or something. Like they weren't even sure if one of these people were real. It's very
interesting. Yeah. I mean, and they were able to. It's so interesting because they associated gold and mercury so close to each other. I said electron earlier. I meant proton. That's how they get their atomic numbers, is the number of protons. So, let me go back and think here. So, I mean, they must have been aware of something. It's just, I don't know if it's recorded or, there's maybe somebody somewhere out there knows about this. Maybe there's one of the secret knowledge that has been passed down for a long time that, we're just, the public just aren't really privy to. I'd like to look into that a little bit more. 2 weeks is not enough time to look into this shit, let me tell you.
Well, we're talking about like the basics of life and crazy stuff that... Also, like electrons and protons, we never seen them. We only see like shadows of them. Like we could kind of see a shadow of them. You don't really actually ever see the electron or the proton. We kind of just know that they're there. So there's a lot of stuff that we just assume that they're there, and then we give them names. And then we're like, oh, okay. Once you name something, naming things is very, very powerful. It's a very powerful thing to give something a name. And
yeah. And I mean, the fact that it was very recently that a periodic table was created. I think it was like, I'm going to look it up. I think it was mid-1800s, right? Let's see. Periodic.
A lot of these scientists just make things up and then they write it down, and then a lot of us just take it for reality. Like, okay, this might be controversial, but Freud, man, I'm not a big fan of Freud. Who like the id and the ego? These are all just his theories. Like, do they really exist? No, you can't. They don't really exist. You can't open somebody's head and pull out their id or their ego. It's his theory about what is going on inside of us. And now we're all just like, yeah, the id and the ego, that's real. And if you say they're not, they'll call you a charlatan and a hermit, and they'll burn your socks off while you're wearing them.
Well, wow. Have you had your socks burned off before?
Yeah, I got little nubs for feet right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's so sad. Sorry, I'm imagining you trying to run. Whew. Well, it turns out that 1869, so it was kind of Russian chemist Dmitry Mendeleev. Am I saying that? Am I butchering it? I can't. I probably learned this in like basic chemistry a million years ago.
You said it perfectly.
Good. I'm glad. But yeah, I mean, he had to have taken some of the stuff that, the Arabs came up with, and seriously, like, people don't give enough credit to. I mean, our numeric system is Arabic, our alphabet is Arabic. There's a lot of, algebra. I mean, there's a lot of shit that we can thank. We can thank the ancient Arabic people for. So it's really quite amazing. And then, as they went around and talked to people and spread their knowledge, so many people were able to contribute and create something amazing, it's really too bad that we can't be a little bit more cooperative. There's a lot of cool things that we could create if we just work together. But that's a different thing altogether. That's just sad things.
And then, like, after they started spreading their knowledge, there was just like a whole bunch of people are like, hey, maybe we should go to that area and conquer it. And then they just had wars and killing people and murder and mayhem. And
I mean, not that I'm defending that type of behavior, but it's just, I mean, we're still animals, and it's a basic animalistic instinct to want to identify with a group and destroy the other. You should see chimpanzees. Holy shit, they're brutal.
I wouldn't hang out with a chimpanzee. Even if there was like a trainer there and he's like, oh, here's my pet monkey, you could touch him. I'd be like, no, sir. Keep your monkey to yourself. It's fine.
They are strong creatures, and they will rip enemy chimpanzees' arms off and beat them with them. And not even kidding. They're brutal. So to me, we've come a long way from that, and at least we have rules for killing each other, more or less. But we kill each other nonetheless, and that's something that we're working on moving away from. And I think that's think that might be happening. Obviously, we've got periods of mass hysteria. Our behavior is cyclical, and right now, obviously, we're in a point. We're at a peak of a mass hysterical period, and it'll come down soon. I couldn't say when, but it will. At least according to previous cycles, which can be traced back to the very beginning of humanity. So this is not unusual. This is something that happens, and it's very stressful for people, especially since we haven't seen it in our time. Most people are not alive. We're not alive for the previous cycle's peak, so it'll be okay.
It's kind of like the Dark Ages, and then there's the Enlightenment and all that other great stuff. Hopefully something like that happens.
Enlightenment, it stems from chaos. It literally is shining a light down upon something that, you haven't seen before. It's creating life. Creation in general is a form of chaos. Which is why, women tend to be associated with chaos because they're the life bringers and they're also emotional as fuck. So.
No comment from me because I don't want to get any bad letters sent to me.
Yes. We are, and I hate to, I'm not.
Guys are too.
This is. Oh, yeah, sure. They can be for sure. They tend to be more towards the aggressive side. It's just a chemical thing. And obviously, I'm speaking in general terms. There are exceptions, so can't accuse me of being whatever you end up accusing me of.
I'm not accusing anyone of anything. One thing I just want to bring up really quick: the alchemical symbols that I'm looking at over here. These things are awesome. Like whoever was the designer of these was amazing. Like I don't know who made these things, but they made some really awesome symbology.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, when I was talking, I have about 3 hours worth of notes here that when I was talking to that guy, that it kind of just goes all over the place. So even a guy that studied this for 30 years, basically half of his life, even he had trouble keeping it to one congruent thought. You know what I mean? But yeah, you look at these symbols, like, the moon's pretty obvious. It's a crescent. Death is, it looks like a little head, but the opening is pointed downwards, and then life is the opposite. It looks like something else. I don't know if you see that as well.
I'm looking for it. I don't know which one that would be. Do you have a picture of
I do. I can send it to you if you would like.
I'm seeing a whole bunch of what is it, vinegar? I found the one for vinegar. Maybe Dvorak could put this one in his book. It's a nice symbol.
Vinegar is interesting, actually, and Dvorak would like that. But I'm sending you an image right now, and it's kind of interesting because it. Oops, I sent it twice. It kind of mirrors the periodic table. Now, whether or not it actually...
Oh, cool. Let's see.
Whether or not it actually...
It's so small. Let me find a bigger one here. I could probably do a reverse image search here.
Yes, do that.
Bam. Okay, there we go. Let's drag this over here. Open, search, open, copy, open, tab. Bop. All right, I'm looking at this. Which one is... Where's death? Is it bottom left, top right?
Let's see. Let's look at this.
Cobalt.
Come on now.
Ooh, zinc. I like that one. Do you want me to send you the big one?
Let's see here.
Oh, look at the bottom. They also got like Aries and Taurus. They got all those symbols of the zodiac in there too.
Yeah.
Do you know if the zodiac and alchemy mixed at all?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Alchemy and astrology are complementary disciplines, sister sciences, seen as precursors.
Understanding.
Whoa, you're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, it's seen as.
You're back.
Astrology, yeah, it's considered nowadays is bullshit, and because of how it's used, and you get your what do you call it? What do they call it when they tell you your zodiac?
Oh, zodiac. Your horoscope?
It's like, yeah, that. Yeah, this is something that I could have looked into as well. But, there is significance to these symbols and what they come from, but that's a whole other thing that I could go into. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm sort of rambling at this point. I'm trying my best to keep the subject on how it kind of gave our knowledge to, or gave our foundation to chemistry. But
do you know Boyle?
What's Boyle look like?
Robert Boyle.
Oh, Robert Boyle. I thought you were talking about the symbol for
the symbol for Boyle. That's a lot of circles, and they rise to the top. There's like a lot of dots at the top and some at the bottom. That's the Boyle symbol, and a fire flame on the bottom.
Yeah, I mean he was like he was a chemist, and we have there's a whole equation based on that guy. Unfortunately, I'm not a
Boyle's law.
Chemist.
Yeah, it was. I think he was the first. He switched over from alchemy to chemistry. Like he was learning all about alchemy, and then he was like, you know what? I found this out. If you compress gas, it gets thick or some shit. I'm not a chemist either.
Yeah. I wish I could tell you more, but yeah, I mean he was a chemist before there was a periodic table, really. And I think that might have been around the time where people started to separate the science from the spiritual nature of the study. So, and I think, let me look him up. Robert Boyle.
Yeah, it was around 1661. He did the Skeptical Chemist.
Oh, yeah.
Or Chemico-Physical. I wonder if, chemist came from alchemy, so I wonder if, did he just forget how to write alchemy? So instead of writing the Skeptical Alchemist, he wrote chemist? I wonder what the...
Well, I mean, maybe they just took the out of the word and then just put chemia, I don't know, and then it evolved into chemistry. Who knows?
Alchemy was the secret? So
the hidden, yeah.
The hidden. So chemistry is just hidden?
Pretty much. I mean, if you think about it in its nature, like you can't see the shit. So, I mean, you have to, obviously it's not at face value. My hand, it's not hidden. But the molecules that make up my hand, they're hidden. You can't see them. I can't see them. Gotta get a microscope. You gotta get some radiation to study how, you can see the atoms and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it is interesting. They knew about hydrogen and helium, and that's the first and second element in our periodic table. So that is the foundation. They were not far off. People should be very proud of them. They shouldn't shit on them all the time. People who come up with these things in the first place. Like I said, there was no Google. Nobody had ever done it before. Like they had no reference. They couldn't say, they couldn't take notes and shit. It was just like, so how does this work? You look to the sky, you base these theories off of basic observations. So, you can't, even Freud, you mentioned him earlier, he was the first one to even like speculate about human, psychology. He was the first one that was like, fuck, dude, like there's some interesting elements about our brains and our behaviors and that kind of thing. And, he basically just, using his own observations, he came up with things that kind of made sense, just his own, his own glasses, if you will, his own method, his own, whatever. It's just something that helped him make sense of it, and he wanted to share it. So
we see something's going on. We know that there's something there, and then we start to look for it. And sometimes we just have to make stuff up as we go along, and that's what these people were probably doing. They're just like, hey, what happens if I put this and this together, or if I rub this on that? And we didn't figure out how to make batteries just like because we read the instruction manual that the sun left us. It was a lot of experimentation and different things, and probably people electrocuting their balls and not knowing what was happening. And then now we got batteries.
Well, people literally died for this shit. They were hunted down, and the Catholics were kind of Catholic-y. They tended to be a little bit violent. So, and it was for what they believed to be the greater good or whatever. I'm not defending them, but it was just how they dealt with things.
That's what they believed in.
Right. A lot of it came from manipulation as well. And they liked money. Who doesn't? But they kind of, they kind of put their heart in their shoe a little bit for money. So it kind of got corrupted a little bit. So, but alchemists died for this shit. So they died for our computers and our batteries and, our smoothies.
Oh, if we put yogurt and bananas together.
Well, they had to figure out, like, hey, they saw these little critters, the yeast, and they're like, they make delicious things for us. They make us beer and wine. I like this. I like these little critters. They grew these critters, and now we got yogurt and beer, and, that was an alchemical practice. Even way back in ancient times, they're like, holy fuck, God, do I love alcohol. So,
how can I make it better? Is your profession now sort of kind of like, I would hate to put, it depends on how you look at the word alchemy, like, what you do is sort of like you try different combinations of things, and is it sort of like alchemy? It's kind of like a dark art of combining.
Yeah, in its basic definition, sure, definitely. Biology is an incredibly unpredictable, crazy thing. It's a chaotic study. Biologists could do the same thing under the same conditions to the same organism, and different shit happens. It's mind-boggling. People are scratching their heads. Like, basically, you can get a lot of predictable results and whatever, but who knows what other things are out there that are manipulating biology. It could be the celestial bodies. It could be, these other wavelengths that we are unable to detect. Like, who knows? But yeah, at least in my experience, like, I could hit my head against a wall trying to figure something out. There's been one thing that I've been trying to figure out for the past 7 months, and my heart rate goes up when I think about it. So I don't know if it's even possible to figure out.
Have you tried mercury or gold? I heard those are very powerful elements.
One of my experiments does involve gold, oddly enough. So, yeah. But anyway, that is something completely different. But yeah, like figuring out how I can talk about like just the basics of what I research. I study viruses and these things called exosomes, and how they relate to exosomes, specifically cancer exosomes, which are just they're basically little tiny nanovesicles that transport RNA and proteins from one thing to another. It doesn't have a nucleus. It's just a little little guy, little bubble. It has a membrane and everything, but it's 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 not a cell. And basically, cells poop them out, and they hold biological information that, they basically use as communication. So that's kind of what I do, is figure out what they're saying to one another and what happens when they're not able to use them. So it's a very, very specific, very focused, very specialized study, which, it's becoming more popular, but I digress. It's very much like alchemy,
Would you get fired or laughed at or killed or burned at the stake if you were starting to say, well, like if you thought outside of the box, like, oh, what if we put these on gold or electrocuted them or shot some radio waves at them or like, how is your experimentation kind of like laid out for you? Do you have like somebody saying, oh, you have to try this experiment on this, or are you just like, let's try to mix it with pickle juice and see what happens? You know what I mean?
I mean, within reason, yeah. Like I can pretty much do whatever I want. Like I've even tried electrocuting things, and I had to. There's many times where I've had to. Thankfully, there's a lot of literature at my disposal, but I've had to, brush up on some basic stuff that I learned in school that I forgot all about, or taught myself how to do something out of the blue because it just would make sense. So. I'm given a lot of freedom in my job, which is really, really nice. But yeah, within reason, like, there are predictable patterns more or less in biology that, would have an effect on whatever. So, a lot of scientists do use gold in their experiments. It's not uncommon.
It's got the molecular structure, probably like electrical, takes out the electrons or passes electrons around and stuff. There's a little stuff that happens. But say one day at work you were like, you went to a couple coworkers like, I need you guys for an experiment. I want to hold hands while we go around this petri dish, and I want us to think really hard about it. Do you think you'd be fired or something?
I wouldn't be fired, but I'd definitely be made fun of.
Like that,
my boss isn't shy about teasing me. So,
okay.
We've called each other idiots and stuff, so we're pretty open with one another. Which is fun. I don't know. It's nice to be blunt. It's nice to have a space where I can just kind of not worry about speaking my mind, and I'm a blunt person at work, and I can be kind of, I don't mean to be mean, but I'm blunt, and I say something because I don't have time to pussyfoot around. Like I've got shit to do. Like, we got to figure this out. I don't have time for being nice. Like, let's go. So
it's your truth, and you can't make it any other way.
Yeah. So there is a prayer that I should have opened up with, an alchemical prayer, and it's in Latin.
Oh.
And I can't pronounce it. And I want to find it, but there's this really cool dude that gives chemistry lectures, and while he's giving the lecture, he talks about, like, this guy just talks nonstop, and I wish I knew his frickin' name, but he's got it up on YouTube and stuff, and actually I should probably yell at Brandon for the name. Get him in here.
That's the name.
But he gave the alchemist prayer, and it was so cool. It was so good. And I can't find it in Latin.
Does it start with, O holy and hallowed Trinity, thou undivided in triple unity?
Something like that.
That's what I came up when I looked for alchemist prayer. All true philosophers of the natural or hermetic sciences begin their labors with the prayer to the supreme alchemist of the universe, beseeching his assistance in the consummation of the magnum opus. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. And, obviously that ties back into the spiritual thing.
It's weird, though, because these people were killed by the same spiritual type people. Because it ends in amen, so I'm just thinking that that's a little weird. that these... Maybe they made this prayer so they wouldn't be killed by religious people. They were like, "Oh, you see, we're saying amen in there. Don't burn my house down."
Well, I mean, amen was adapted from shit. That's a
From
good
shit?
point.
Wow.
It was adopted from man, I wish I'd looked that up too. My brain spits out information.
So
I feel bad. I've learned how to do an episode now.
Just throw it at the
this
wall.
Is a rough first episode, man.
Eh.
We'll have to come back to this when my brain is a little bit more organized. This might have been a little too complicated because I mean, there's so many forms of alchemy. Like I'm looking at this shit here. There's emotional alchemy, physical, etherical.
I didn't even know that there was emotional alchemy. That's
yeah, dude. Oh, for sure. I mean, if you think about it, like, how are your emotions when you're a kid? Like, you're psycho. Like, when you're a kid, you're crazy, you know? And everything is just, like, overblown. Like, whoa, this shit's exciting. Because it's, you know, the first time you've seen stuff, you know? And as you age and you start getting used to these things and you start, you know, handling your emotions, you know, and obviously chemistry plays a huge role in your emotions and whatnot. So, yeah, your mental states will change over time. You know, your emotions are transmutating. So, you know.
I think I kind of remember the first time that actually happened to me. Like, do you ever hear of, like, when you're having a good time, time flies? Like, time speeds up when you're happy or having a good time?
Yeah.
I think I remember the first time I felt that. I was like at a friend's house and we were playing Mario Kart and it felt like it was 10 minutes long, but it was actually like 3 hours. And I was like,
yeah,
holy crap, this is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it is strange. Time is something that
Time is well-defined and well-known and it can't be disproven, and we know exactly what it is, and the science is hard. No, okay.
It's complicated. Because we're aware of time, but what about the things that aren't aware of time? Is there time? Like, there's corrosion over time.
Rust,
what have you. Which is why, you know, that's going back to the gold thing. It's applicable to gold. It's timeless, you know. It doesn't seem to experience time, which is why they think that, you know, gold is the key to eternal life.
Man, the French people should have made the Statue of Liberty out of gold. Why'd they have to make it out of such rusty copper?
I don't know. Looks kind of cool, though.
It does, yeah.
I mean, that'd be a lot of gold. Plus, you know, it'd be pretty expensive.
Yeah, well, they could have gold plated it or something. Maybe give her like gold fingernails or something, or a crown.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, gold crowns and yeah. So.
Did you know that Isaac Newton? He hammered gold so thin that he made contact lenses out of them that he was able to see through.
Did he? That's neat.
I read that in a book. I think it's real. I think Isaac Newton gold contacts.
That's nuts, actually.
It was in a forget the name of the freaking book and the writer and all this. It was like a big old book. I think it was William Gibson wrote like a whole stuff like the beginning of the whole monetary system, and it was like fiction, but it was based off of fact. Like it talked about Isaac Newton and all these people, and there's a lot of facts in it, and I think most of them were right. But I remember a lot of the little stories that were in it, and it was pretty intense. I think he almost went blind too because he was sticking shit in his eyes.
Oh no!
You know, you
wow.
gotta learn somehow, right? You only live once.
Yeah. I mean, scientists did some pretty crazy shit, to like Rosalind Franklin, man. She's the one that discovered the double helical form of DNA, and Watson and Crick are always accredited with that, but they thought it was a triple helix, and she was like, no, bros, it's double helix, and she discovered that through X-rays and actually with gold, if I'm not mistaken. But they kind of they're like, cool, bro, and they kind of took her research and made it their own, and it's pretty sad, actually. Rosalind Franklin.
I don't think I've ever heard of her.
Yeah, it's really too bad, because she was actually the one that discovered this shit, so. But, it's, women, they had a hard time with, if they were scientists and stuff, it was a little harder for them to be taken seriously. But that's changing. I think as most cultures became more of a matriarchal society, and patriarchal society, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, fuck the patriarchy or anything. It's just, it is what it is. I'm trying to be as non-opinionated about this shit as possible. So whatever you interpret as me trying to, or you, the general you, whatever people interpret as me trying to, have an opinion against something, that's on you. Like, that's your lens.
Are you trying to be offensive?
Huh?
Are you trying to be offensive?
No.
Well, then not. People should get over it.
I'm just trying to be as straightforward as possible. So, maybe it'll come out once in a while, because I do have my opinions, but I don't want to share them. I just want to be as fact-based as possible for the best of my knowledge. So, anyway, as things started to move more towards a patriarchal society, the divine feminine was kind of disregarded. And instead of being equal in strength in different ways, they kind of became a subhuman type of thing, which is not, cross-cultural. A lot of cultures regard women as being, the ones that determine if you live or die. So they were given a lot of power. And there's a lot of very powerful figures associated with females. And, Justice is blind and she's female.
She's not really blind. Female. She just has a cloth over her eyes, She might be able to see under there.
She might be peeking. You think she's peeking?
Maybe it's like a clear cloth, but since it's a statue, you can't tell that it's clear.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
It's true. I don't know. She might be sneaky. Who knows? Especially nowadays where, richer people might be given the opportunity, might be given a little bit of, but, might be.
You never know when these really smart people come along either, like Isaac Newton or Marie Curie, Marie Curie.
Yeah.
Like these people just come around, like one person just changes the world, and it's like, whoa, holy crap.
Mm-hmm. But we can thank Rosalind Franklin, and to some extent, they worked together, they were colleagues. But they should have all been kind of. Yeah, she died. She actually died for this. She died of ovarian cancer because of all the radiation she was exposed to when she was studying molecular structures. So it really is too bad. But Watson and Crick lived to be quite old. I think one of them's actually still alive, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know which one. But anyway, let's see. Rosalind Franklin. I want to see if she actually used gold, and I think she did.
Oh, I was thinking of Neil Stephenson and the Baroque Cycle. It was like a big ass book. It wasn't William Gibson. It was Neil Stephenson. For those people yelling at their screen right now.
Gold experiment. Maybe that wasn't her. Maybe they used. I think they used sheets of gold to try to see the number of protons there were in an element. God, I forget so much. I wish I could retain a lot of this stuff.
It's way too much knowledge. That's why the internet's cool, because if you have like a little hook, you could usually go out and find it. Do you know what I remember always reading about gold? Like they were like, oh, we're going to shoot gold into cancer cells, and then we could radiate people, and the gold will absorb it and cure you of cancer without damaging cells around it. I read that like so long ago, and what's going on with this? What's going on with this technology?
So that's taken so many avenues nowadays with cancer. Cancer's another interesting thing, and that was even given its name from way back in the day. Cancer came from an observation that it looked like a little crab. It was ancient Greek. So that's why Cancer, the zodiac sign, is also a crab.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like a little crab. And they understood that it was something different, that it was basically your body disobeying, the natural growth cycle. And nowadays, there are different methods. Like obviously the radiation thing chemotherapy is starting to, people are realizing that it might do more harm than good in a lot of cases. So they've gone to what they call targeted gene therapy. And what they've been able to do is discover which gene in your DNA is mutated. And basically they try to, and this is something I could get into way too much detail over, but basically it's understanding what the gene is and modifying it and trying to prevent it from being, they understand, how this gene is fed and how the cancer, the receptors in the cancer can be blocked so it doesn't grow anymore. So that's a whole other thing. And then there's immunotherapy where it's kind of the same thing where, I'll have to brush up on that too, but they've used inert viruses to kind of that they'll use to elicit an immune reaction from the body, and it'll attack the cancer. So that's another method. Obviously, they've been able to cut cancers out. Just take the little crab out and throw it away.
When you use like viruses to change RNA or DNA to kill cancer, how like is it like a direct thing? I don't know if you have any idea about this, but it's like, say I have like a cancer in my lung or something, and they want to like use these viruses to change my DNA to kind of kill the cancer or something. Is it just like I take a drink, or is it a shot, or a prophylactic? How do they like change my DNA or give me these inert viruses to do this stuff?
I'm really not sure. I'm not a physician, so okay. I can give you a very vague, idea of how it works. Very, very basic, but gotcha. Okay. The details are foggy. So I always wondered like how they like direct these cures to certain areas or something. It boggles my mind how they even know how to do this stuff. Yeah, it is. It's pretty insane, and it's come a long way. But they've kind of steered away from poisoning your entire body to how can we focus on just the cancer and not killing everything, cell yes. in your body, because that will end up. Sometimes chemo's killed people and not the cancer. Yeah. So finding that balance is difficult. Well, if you kill the person, you stop the cancer. I mean, yeah. Depends on how you look at it. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Cancer's also like a never-ending. It never dies, right? Like it just keeps growing and does it age?
like sad, like lung cancer. It's like my lung is growing more lung, and then it just eats up all the blood. But does that cancer cell, does it age at all, or is it like I have so many questions.
No, well, because it overwrites. So there's a cell pathway called P53, and basically it overrides that. And what P53? It's so boring, such a boring name. It basically signals cell death. So that is basically the thing that it's the aging component, right? Gotcha. And that's how your body recycles cells. You need that cellular pathway for, your skin continually dies and it gets swept away, and then cellular matter gets recycled, and, it becomes, it turns it back into its basic amino acids so that it can become other types of proteins and cells and blah, blah, blah. So with the P53 pathway being nixed, I guess, your cells grow out of control. And because of that, all your resources go into just growing this fucking thing that won't die. It's basically, like I said earlier, it's just misbehavior.
I wonder if
it's going.
Imagine one day we could use cancer to stop death. Like we learn how to get all the cells to regulate the P53s, and we could like live forever. But so, I don't know. It's very strange. You know what? You just brought up a good point though. Like P53 is a really boring name, or was it P52 or 53? Well, like
P53.
We should take stuff from The Alchemist, and instead of naming it P53, give it like a really cool symbol. Like there should be like really cool symbols for everything.
I mean, it's pretty neat what they do. It's I don't know if they needed to create this. Oh, there you are.
There we go. Yeah, you cut out for a second.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I saw the top of your head for a long time.
Heard that before.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm kind of rambling at this point. I feel sad, and I thought I was prepared, and
well, did you learn your lesson?
Yeah,
I guess. It was still a fun episode. We talked a lot about a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's your alchemical roots in chemistry.
There we go.
Yay! I feel like I didn't give enough knowledge. I thought I was prepared. Oh, you learn from failure.
Hey, well, next week we could try it again, and we'll have another topic, or we could we'll keep working on it. It was a fun time. I think we could make something of this show called Origins of Things and Stuff.
Yeah. Why not? That's a good working title.
We were heavy on the stuff today.
We're heavy on the stuff today, that's for sure. And now I know how to research better, I think. So, yeah. I mean, I guess the one thing I did that I thought was good was taking something that we all know about and learning about how that came to be.
Yeah,
right? It's kind of like the cancer thing.
Indeed.
You didn't know it came from the reason it looks like a little crab. You didn't know that.
And now I know that there's an alchemical symbol for horse dung.
I mean, it's pretty flammable. Like, people use cow dung for,
explosives.
Keeping fires for a long time. There's properties in horse shit and cow shit that make it possible to keep a flame for a really long time. Ruminant. What is that? What they're called? Ruminant animals.
Well, this is a whole nother avenue, so to speak. That maybe we could talk about horse poop next week. I don't know. Well, Nadia.
All right, dude. Well,
I think
thank you for bearing with me here.
It's been great. By the way, I'm Nick from Nick the Rat. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, but I'll introduce myself at the end because that's how I'll do stuff today.
Yeah, and I'm your host, in training, Illuminatia.
There we go.
And we'll just try again next week.
Definitely. All right. Well, I will talk to you later, and I hope you have a great day.
You as well. And may we seek knowledge always.